والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وبعد. Assalaamu Alaikum and welcome to the Muslim Gamers Podcast, the official podcast of the largest Discord server for Muslim gamers. My name is Faraj, and joining me today, we actually have a very full group here. I'll start with whoever the person I am that I'm seeing on my left is Syed, Jublani, Abdul as usual, and Nael as usual. Assalamu Alaikum, everyone.
Alaikum assalam.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all, if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube and whatever your podcast platform of choice is, as it'll help us out a lot. And if you haven't joined the Discord server also, go ahead and do that because there's some cool stuff in there waiting for you. But before we actually get into the episode, I just wanted to take a couple moments to mention something. While I know we've only mentioned this in the first episode, but while we haven't really mentioned the people of Palestine and Gaza, doesn't mean that we haven't been thinking about them and keeping them close to us in our hearts, making dua for them. So just, please continue to keep them in your duas. May Allah grant them victory and justice. Ameen.
Ameen.
All right. So with that being said, Assalamu Alaikum, my wonderful guests and co-hosts. How are y'all doing today?
Hanging in there.
Hanging in there?
Doing all right. A little bit under the weather. But,
A little bit under the weather? Allah yashfik.
Yeah.
Hope you
By the
feel
way,
better,
I want to start us off. I have something to say.
Okay.
So I was, messaging you guys saying, hey, a little bit under sick. I don't know if I can make it. Faraj messages me. He's like, by the way, it's okay if you can't, but if you can make it to the episode, like this is the episode of parenting, and it would just be like, what did you say? You said
I said something like parenting is about showing up no matter how you feel.
Parenting is about showing up no matter what. I'm like, what? He just guilting me to show up to the podcast.
I was trying to not guilty. I was just trying to give you that's my idea of it. Doesn't mean you have to show up.
Yeah.
I appreciate you showing up. Thank you. I do appreciate you showing up, but you really didn't have to if you were
This
not.
This guy's like, nah, screw your mental health and physical health. Show up to the podcast. You're a parent.
That was absolutely not my goal at all whatsoever, but I'm glad you're here. But you did tell me you're feeling better, so alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
That's good.
We're here.
Cool. So I know we've had our your usuals here, Abdul, Nael, and myself, but a couple of our newcomers here as guests, Syed and Jublani. Let's get to know you guys a little bit. So tell us a little bit about yourselves, at least what you're willing to share in the open internet.
Syed, you first, man. Go ahead.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I go by SyedQutuz. Others may know me as Assalam Jalut. I have been a parent for quite a few years now, and definitely have had to navigate the gaming topic quite a bit. And inshallah, I'll have some fun insights to share during this podcast.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. Looking forward to that.
Looking at grilling you. Yeah.
All right. Hey, assalamu alaikum, everyone. Jublani, been on MG for I think about 4 years now. But yeah, I have twin girls, so I'm a very proud girl dad. And video games is actually, funny enough, one of the very recent topics I've had to broach with my children. It's not something I really did too much. They didn't really get exposed to too much of that growing up, and it's only recently now. But we'll talk more about that later.
Oh yeah, definitely, absolutely. I know one of you guys just mentioned in the studio chat to think about everyone else where people are suffering too. Just don't want to mention those: Syria, Yemen, Sudan, Kashmir, the Uyghur people. Inshallah, may Allah grant them all justice and victory. Inshallah.
I mean.
Yeah. All right. So just as a warm up, why don't we start talking about, since we're the Muslim gamers, we'll talk about the gaming part of our lives. You know what, Abdul? I've been peeking a little bit at your library of what you've been playing. So why don't we start off with you first? Because I have no idea what Metaphor Refantasio is, and I want to know more.
To this game, I have been playing nothing but Metaphor Refantasio these past few days. That game. So a little bit of background. It's an Atlas game. If you don't know what Atlas is, they're the Persona creators, the Shin Megami Tensei. This game is kind of like a culmination of everything that they have built over the years with their unique take in this JRPG genre, and it's done so well. if you are an Atlas fan, this is like a love letter to everything that you like about the games, and the story is captivating. The characters are interesting. It's a very rich world to get lost in. I am like still very much in the beginning of the game, but I'm like addicted. I can't stop playing. Like, it's so good.
This
I would not be surprised if it ends up being game of the year for a lot of people's game of the year
is
lists.
the combat in this like action RPG type, or is it turn based?
It's turn-based action. Yeah, it's just turn-based action basically.
What makes it enjoyable for you? Like the gameplay or the story?
The story is really good. If you like the turn-based Atlas format of fighting, kind of like Persona 5 had, it's basically that a little bit. Except it adds its own little twists to it. It's a lot harder. I'm playing on normal, and like I'm struggling a little bit. So yeah, you definitely have to grind a little bit. I mean, you can always make it down if you want, but we didn't raise no quitters here. So grinding through it. But yeah, no, it's really good. I am enjoying it a lot. I can't there's literally zero about the game where I'm like, I wish this was better. Like I can't find anything right now.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Coming with high praise. Nice.
That's me.
Let me jump to SyedQutuz. Tell us a little bit about some of the games you've been playing.
So it's kind of funny. When I was listening to some of your older podcasts, and you guys were talking about your games of shame or the pile of shame.
Thank you for listening to the old episodes, by the way.
That's actually something I have been actively focusing on for the last 2-3 years. So I made a rule, which is I don't buy new games anymore. I play what I already have in the library until I finish them. And it's been a very interesting adventure. So a lot of the games I've been playing lately have been Europa Universalis 4, PlanetSide 2, MechWarrior Online. I'm trying to actually finish Fallout 3 now, and a game called Sheltered, which was a small indie game that I had never touched it, and now I'm actually trying to beat it. And on the tabletop side, which will become important later on during this discussion, I'm been getting into BattleTech and GURPS, and we'll talk about that later on, inshallah.
Sure, absolutely. BattleTech is the same universe as MechWarrior, right?
So, yeah, actually, BattleTech is the universe. MechWarriors are the guys who pilot the mechs, and then they made a video game franchise, called MechWarrior, because you play the guy who pilots the mech. Yeah.
Cool. Nael, tell us a little bit about what you've been playing.
Still working through the Batman series, the Arkham series. But
you're still on Asylum?
No, I played through a little. I replayed Asylum a little bit, replayed City a little bit, and then I just skipped to
Origins,
Arkham Knight.
Okay. Did you skip Origins?
I've played Origins a little bit. But like I mentioned last time, like the Arkham games, they're fun and immersive, but it's a little bit repetitive once you're kind of in it. So I didn't want to feel that too much and miss the new parts of the Arkham series and get bored too quickly. So I just jumped ahead to Arkham Knight. So I'm gonna finish that one all the way through. I'm having fun with it so far.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not. The combat is a little too smart now. You can just button mash, which I kind of like the little bit of technic fighting that you used to get in the older Arkham series. But it's still fun.
I don't.
There's nothing like flying around that city, though, man.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I know a lot of people had. There's mixed opinions on the new Batmobile that in Arkham Knight, but I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, it's fun.
The tank battles.
I'm just having fun, so I'm not thinking about it too hard.
I haven't played Arkham Knight yet, but I remember beating Arkham Asylum in one sitting. It took 2 days.
Wait, what?
One sitting? My man, how much time do you have? Are you sure you have kids?
How much time did he have?
This was before. Hold on. This was before kids. And yes, I stayed up straight for 2 nights. I did it 2 nights straight and then crashed hard.
Oh my god!
But great game. And then I played Arkham City after kids. Have not touched Night yet.
Okay,
so we'll see.
For context, Arkham Asylum came out in 2009. So
Way
I
to
think
date
we
the
were
guy.
forgetting how long ago that game.
Yeah,
came out,
I
and
kind
how
of
much
forget time
Yeah,
swishes when you get older, I guess.
yeah. When people say Linkin Park is dad rock, that's when I'm like, oh god. Yeah. All right. So Nael, are you going to be picking up Arkham Shadow for the Quest 3? I'm just joking.
Well, if I get a Quest 3, then we'll see.
Nice. Cool. I don't know. I mean, they did say they're going to start working on more Arkham games. Like the team behind the Suicide Squad game, they're like, all right, we're giving up on that. We're just going to go back to Arkham. So hopefully it'll mean some good news for some games that we can play in 2D, or at least in the 2D.
Yeah, and hopefully they change things up a little bit. It's kind of feeling a little Ubisoft.
Yeah, they got to try something new.
Yeah,
for sure. All right, Jublani, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you've been playing?
Yeah, so on the single player front, I'm on my third playthrough of Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh,
Love the game. Probably my favorite it's my favorite video game of all time. There's no question. It's like tippy top. But that once I finish with that, I'm gonna uninstall it, put it to rest, and then finally start Baldur's Gate 3. Other than that, Balatro has been taking up an incredible amount of my time.
So addicting.
I broke my rule. I usually never buy mobile games, and I had it on Steam, and then I loved it so much I was like, all right, I gotta buy it on the phone. I want to support this guy, and it's been a problem. And then other than that,
for anyone else who wants to get addicted, it's on sale for the Switch right now.
Dude, buy it even if it's not on sale. But
dude, anyway, another game like that. I don't know, to feed to your addiction. Vampire Survivors.
I like Vampire Survivors, but I like I don't know if you know, Deep Rock Galactic has a Survivors game, and it's like better Vampire Survivors. So prior to Balatro, that's what I was playing as like my while I'm in a meeting and not paying attention, what I have on the side. But yeah, other than that, most of my gaming.
Hope your employers aren't listening.
Yeah, it's that's why we go by the pseudonym.
But yeah, nobody plays video games during meetings, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
Nobody. Absolutely.
It's an expression, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, other than that, I actually play socially. I really enjoy. I play. I have a race sim set up. I play Forza with a good friend of mine. We play like both of us are dads. We play like maybe once or twice a month. We try to do that.
A year?
No, thankfully, like it does take. It is a pain in the butt to lug out the race sim setup. But and then other than that, I love VR gaming. I play Contractor. I actually use my Quest like at least 4 times a month, and I play Contractors with a few friends of mine, or Walkabout Mini Golf if we just want to be chill about it. Yeah.
Okay. So 2 things. First of all, I'm a fellow race sim nerd as well.
Hell yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your setup. What kind of wheel you got?
I don't remember the exact thing. A friend of mine was moving, and he basically was like, "I can't take this with me." So he had a Logitech wheel, Logitech wheel, and then a Thrustmaster pedal setup. I don't remember the exact, model numbers or whatever, and it came on a seat, like a play seat, challenge collapsible seat. And so I bought the whole thing from him. It's originally for a PlayStation, but I bought this thing called a Drive Hub that lets you basically connect it to PC or Xbox or whatever. And I've been playing it on Xbox, Forza. But now that I have a gaming PC, which I just got like a month ago, I'm going to try Assetto Corsa in VR, and I just need to tweak, poke around with that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Assetto Corsa. I haven't tried the original Assetto Corsa in VR yet. I have played quite a bit of Assetto Corsa Competizione in VR. It's If you like the GT3 racing, it's a lot of fun.
Dude, yeah. Just a quick aside, like me and my friends have an amateur race team. Like we actually have a race car that we work on together. I'm the worst racer in the group. So to get prepared for our first race, this is like years ago, my brother-in-law had his race sim set up with R Factor. It's a really old game. He put in the track that we're going to be on and the car that we were using. And I put in like 50 laps on the race sim to get prepared for that race.
That's awesome.
That's
pretty cool.
Really sick. Yeah, that just prompted me to send you a friend request on
Discord.
And don't worry, Syed, I'm not leaving you out. I sent you one too.
He's like, before this, I wasn't sure. Like,
Exactly.
Same flavor of nerd.
Cool. Just a little bit about some of the games that I've been playing. With the whole Pokemon leaks situation that happened recently, that's had Pokemon on my mind, and I haven't properly beaten a Pokemon game outside of playing it on emulators with like Game Shark codes. So I started playing, or at least resumed my playthrough of Alpha Sapphire on the 3DS, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. Abdul can attest to this. I've encountered and caught my first ever shiny Pokemon, so feeling pretty good
Unfortunately, it was
about
a
that.
trash Pokemon, but hey, congrats.
I mean, it's a shiny. I don't care. Yeah, yeah. Literally, it was a green oddish. It literally looked like, I don't know. It just, yeah, it didn't look that great. But I mean, hey, my first shiny.
Hey, man.
So you get the imagery. You know what I'm talking about. And then besides that, I also started. I got this game as a gift called Zero Hour. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. So
No.
this was actually a game
competition
made.
shooter, right? Or
No, not a competition shooter. It's like a tactical SWAT type shooter, kind of like Ready or Not.
Okay.
But this was actually made by developers in Bangladesh,
Oh,
with like a setting in Bangladesh. Like your first mission takes place in Dhaka,
interesting.
it's called Terror
Mashallah.
House, and like some of the characters actually speak Bengali and everything. I don't speak Bengali. Um, Interestingly enough, the friend that gifted it to me is Bengali himself. But I was actually having quite a lot of fun with that, considering that the game is in a 1.0 release and it's under $20 on which when not on sale. I think it's definitely worth a try. It was very hard for me, if I'm being honest. It just shows how much I suck in these types of games, but I want to play them and get better at them. So that's definitely, yeah, it's really cool to see stuff like this come from outside of the US, especially from South Asia. So that was really cool.
it's pretty cool.
And
Mashallah.
lastly, I did play through a bit of Diablo 4 with the new season, but I do have a little bit of a story. Actually, this could be a good segue into our main topic, because I tried to play with two other friends of mine, who one of them is a parent of a baby that's under a year old, and the other one is just he's married, but he also doesn't really have a lot of time on his hands. So we were trying to get the game started. Both of them had to update the game as soon as we got started with it. It was like a 50 gig update. So that took a while to get that started
Love
with our
that.
limited time.
Yeah.
And then one of them, it was their first time playing Diablo 4. So I had to kind of walk him through it a little bit. And then just as we got the third brother available after taking care of his baby and everything, just as he was trying to jump on, we were encountering this bug that didn't allow him to join our party.
Damn.
So that was always fun. Looking up that code, people were saying that this is just something that Blizzard has not really put any initiative to fix. It's just like, just keep trying until you're able to join. There was like a very specific error code. So that was very frustrating. So, and then finally, when he was able to get started, his baby was also going through some issues of not being able to sleep through the night. Like he'd wake up like within 5 minutes of being put down to bed. So that was tough. But at least we were able to get through some gaming. It was fun. But it also had us stay way past when we were supposed to, before we usually go to bed. So it was like 1:30 by the time we were done. And yeah, with a 1-year-old baby and
R.I.P.
with a lot of stuff going on, it puts
This
your
a
whole
weekday
day.
or a weekend? I hope it was a weekend.
Thankfully,
Okay.
it was a weekend. Thankfully, otherwise it would have been really bad.
Yeah, that does not sound like fun.
It's only slightly more forgiving for it to be on a weekend.
Exactly. Yeah, only slightly more forgiving. And the reason I mentioned this as a segue is because our main topic, especially with SyedQutuz and Jublani joining us as guests for this episode, we're going to be talking mainly about what it's like to be Muslim parents and how we bring gaming, or like how gaming fits into the whole picture. All right, so we're here just to have a discussion as Muslim parents who also happen to be gamers. So I know, Abdul, you had you'd actually mentioned that you have quite a few different things you wanted to ask about what it's like, because especially without revealing any ages, for those that don't want to reveal any ages, SyedQutuz and Jublani, you've both been parents for quite a bit longer than Abdul and myself. Uh, I'll just reveal for myself. I have two boys, one 6 years old and another one 3 years old. Anyone else that wants to talk about how old their kids are?
Yeah, mine are probably the youngest. I have a 3-year-old, and then I have almost 2-year-old, basically.
Nice. Yeah, I have twin girls, and they're 7.
twin 7-year-old girls.
MashaAllah.
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
So the most
I'll make it easy for you.
Yeah, I mean,
It's gotta be rough.
The most I'll reveal is I have at least 2 kids and at least one of each, and that's about it. But alhamdulillah, it's been fun and interesting.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. Cool.
I'm not a parent at this moment.
I know we did make
You
the
got
joke
cats.
that
I
your
do
cats
have
and
cats.
your
You're a
and the
cat
Steam
dad.
Deck was your recent addition to your family.
Yeah, that happened.
But yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of questions. I guess I'll start it off. Some of the more older seasoned parents, basically everybody here besides me. My first question is when did you guys, let's take a step back. So we've all seen the studies of like, hey, screen time for kids is really bad. You should try to avoid it as much as possible for as long as possible. Not giving them active screen time. Just wanted to ask if that's something you guys practiced at all for your kids when they were young. And also, like, when did you loosen the reins on that?
Yeah, I can go first. I want to do that. Yeah, so that's a really important thing that when my wife and I had children, that we had seen some other children in our community that were like iPad kids, and we're like, man, we can't do that because we've seen what it did, like in terms of their social development, how they were. So we had to start cutting down our device usage before the kids were born when they were really young. When they're really tiny and they don't move, then it's not so bad. When they start getting a little bit more attentive, you have to start paying attention. So I remember, like kind of binging gaming and getting it out of my system when the kids were really immobile and small. What I would do is I would actually have a little U pillow and I'd put them down and I'd play Overwatch with them in my lap. So that was fun. But as they got a little older, we tried to not bring our phones into the room. So we would just leave them right outside the room whenever we were playing with the kids.
Wow.
And the one exception we did make was my wife and I are both avid readers, so we had Kindles or e-readers or whatever, and we're like, that's fine, right? Because it's a book. We would read to them as much as we could. And I'm not saying we're perfect, so I'm not like trying to do that. I'm just saying how our trajectory worked out. And then I eventually did buy an iPad. It was for me to take notes in some classes I was taking. And I would only ever use the iPad whenever I had a kid at home with me that was sick, or if we just needed like 1 hour of time where we didn't really, we needed just something quiet. We needed them to be occupied so we could go and take care of something important. And we've done that pretty well until they turned about 5 or 6. Then I had a Nintendo Switch. They would watch me play games. Prior to that, I only gamed at night when they were asleep or while they were napping. But they would watch me play. They watched me play Hades. They really like watching me play Minecraft, and then a few indie games here and there. And the only games that I played with them was we would play Mario Kart, which they were terrible at. They still suck at. And then we would play Nintendo Switch Sports because I was like, all right, at least this has them get up and move. I was like, I can live with that. And so that's like their main game. And then as a birthday gift, I finally let them play Minecraft for the first time. So that was really fun.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's been a long road to get here, and it's been hard because when they see other kids gaming or talking about games and they're not in it, it really it gets to them. Like, oh, well, they play. How come we can't play? And now they're at the age where if I can't make it make sense to them, they're not going to listen. So now I've kind of slowly introduced it, and as long as they continue reading as their primary entertainment first and foremost, I'm cool with gaming. It's only for weekends anyway. Yeah.
Okay. So I have 2 follow-up questions for what you're saying, Jublani. The first is when you and your wife made the decision to not be the iPad parents or the parents of an iPad kid, did you get any? I was just curious if you got any reactions from other parents saying, "Oh, that's going to be too hard. You think it's going to be easy to do it, to raise your kids without giving them any screen time at all, or by trying to limit it, but it's going to be hard." Did you encounter any of that?
Yeah. Actually, a lot from my extended family. Many of my cousins' kids were, they were raised that way. And so it was a battle whenever we go to family functions that, my kids would see one of their cousins sitting on an iPad and they would gravitate towards it and I'd have to like distract them, give them something else to do.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough, but also you can model that behavior for other parents. And, like one really important thing is spending time with parents that share the same values as us. So I know I would go to a play date and I'm like, all right, this is a play date with a kid whose parents are on the same page. They're also not big on screen usage. So this is going to be a lot easier to deal with than in a situation where it wouldn't be that way.
How do you navigate that with family? Because like you mentioned, some members of the family are, following a different philosophy.
Yeah, we just, try to distract the kids. They like playing with toys, reading. There's always something else to do that's entertaining. We would go outside, throw a ball around or kick a ball or something. So there'd be something to do that could get them out of that situation. I would never tell my cousin, be like, hey, can you have your kid put their iPad up? I'm
Yeah.
like, that's your kid. You parent them how you want.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
have to adapt. If I have a
No.
value, I've got to stick to it. I got to find a way to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Faraj, you're on mute.
Faraj, you're on mute.
Sorry. Just like what you mentioned, Jublani, when there's other kids with the other kids are different with what rules that they have set for by their parents. I'll try to just distract my kids just to try to get them away whenever possible. But like you said, it's tough when they're all. It's easier to kind of model that, and sometimes you have to make that tough choice of like maybe it's best if we instead of going to their house like twice a month, maybe cut it down to once a month or something like that,
or you be the host,
or
Yeah.
us be the host.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that brings about with it its own challenges as well,
For sure.
too. But you kind of pick and choose and weigh the pros and cons of how you want to go about with it. My second question actually was because I'm curious about Minecraft, because my 6-year-old son, he loves Minecraft, but he's never really played it himself. And like I tried to look up like parenting guides online to see like is Minecraft recommended for like a 5, like he first wanted to play when he was 5. Is it recommended for like a 5-6-year-old? I feel like 7 might be a good age, but because there's a lot of complexity to it that
Yeah.
they have to learn the mechanics and everything. So you feel like 7 was a good age to start your girls on them?
Yeah. What I did specifically is I started them out on creative mode where they don't have to worry about trying to survive or anything like that. They're just building stuff, right? So the first thing I had them do was, hey, you're gonna find a good location that you like, and then you're gonna build a house. You can build a bed, you can build walls, doors, whatnot. And I kind of walked them through that gently, but I never really like pushed them to do it. Like we were in the middle of building a house, and they're like, you know what? We don't want a roof. I was all right, cool. If you don't want a roof, you don't want a roof. And then I just showed them how to build a bed because I was like, hey, you need this to have a respawn location. If you want to go through the night, you're scared of the zombies. If you want to fast forward through the zombies, that's how you do it. But yeah, I think, I mean, each kid's development, varies, but specifically with my kids, I think 7 was a good time. They had
Okay.
enough maturity to learn to work together. They've already had lectures from me and mom about, learning how to share. So at this point, when they're working together in the same creative world, it's kind of like the building Legos together, and
Right.
just digitally.
Right. Definitely. That's cool. That's cool. Sayed, why don't you tell us a little bit if you want to weigh in on screen
Yeah.
time?
So for my kids, it was something similar. We did not allow them to have screen time, and until today, the only electronic device they each had is an e-reader of some sort. They do and also their school Chromebooks. That's about all they get. And we have a very strong rule of the Chromebooks cannot be taken into their own room. It has to be in the shared family area. In regards to games, we avoided allowing them to play too early. And also, my wife.
What do you
and
consider too early? Sorry to interject.
We'll get to that. My wife and I also had a discussion before when they were still very young that we would both have to agree on when they could break certain barriers. So, like playing a game that has violence, etc. As for too early, it definitely would have to be the development stage. So we wanted to wait till they had gotten to a point where they were able to entertain themselves, interact with people without constantly having to relay it to a device or a phone to do that. And so, roughly around the same age as Jublani's kids would be when we allowed them to play. And the first game they really got into was Minecraft, and now it's Roblox because they want to play with their friends. And also, we have strict rules on Roblox, like they can't be in a public server; it has to be on a private server with just their friends and stuff like that. And the funny story of what prompted us to be more strict about which games they can even watch me play, mostly me because my wife really only plays The Sims, was when I was playing actually Batman Arkham City, and I was trying to do one of those challenges where you have to beat up like 200 guys or whatever. And one of my kids comes next to me, and they're watching me play, and they're like, "Why are you hitting all those people?" I was like, "Oh, they're bad guys, And they're like, "Oh," and they get quiet and they go like, "So if my sibling is being mean to me and they're being bad, is it okay if I hit them too?" And I was like,
Nice.
I was like, Alt F4, we're done with the game. And
love the leap. Love
hilarious.
that leap.
Yeah.
Love that logic leap.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And so for a while, I didn't play any violent video games when they were awake, which is funny because when they were babies, I'd have them in the bouncer and I'd be bouncing them with my foot, and I'm playing like Mountain Blade Warband or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really easy when
when they were immobile.
age.
Yeah.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
No,
Absolutely.
I appreciate the responses. I mean, the reason I ask is we're kind of the same way. We don't we're trying not to do screen time with the kiddos as much as possible. No iPads and anything like that. We recently gone on a trip, and then so I had and both my wife and I work from home, so sometimes we need them to like be in their own space so that we can do something if we have like meetings overlapping or something like that. So I had earlier in the year I had downloaded one game on my phone. It was a Very Hungry Caterpillar game for my son because my son has never played alone. He's always wants somebody to play with him. And so that's been a bit challenging, but it is what it is. But that was the one thing that I was like, okay, just I need like 30 minutes for this meeting. Here, you can do this, and he played for it, he played with it and stuff like that, and then I just noticed it. That's all he wanted, and it got worse and worse and worse. And then so now I deleted the game. I'm like, okay, we're done with this. Like you keep asking for it, nothing else is entertaining you. Like we're done, So that's over. But I was like, wow, that really like just that one simple thing, and it's a very like non-stimulating game. Like it's like I don't know if you know kids games, like it's just the Very Hungry Caterpillar. It just goes through the story of the Very Hungry Caterpillar, and that's it. But yeah, I was like, dang.
Yeah, you give an inch, they take a mile.
Yeah,
it's the problem we had too when we first introduced them to games, and they just wanted to play all the time. Which we could talk about this later, but that transitions to why.
Yeah, that I also want to get into later.
Yeah,
yeah. So for me, honestly, I'm not definitely not the example to set for how to raise your kids with screen time. We're doing definitely better now, but at the start, we didn't really have any restrictions on screen time for our oldest. At least as far as him like watching anything on TV, and even like you guys said, when they're younger, you don't have to worry about really what you're playing, and them seeing that on the screen. So I wasn't super worried about that. And even with devices, he didn't really get his own iPad or anything, but he would sometimes try to play with our phones, and we were a little unrestricted about that at first, but we slowly realized that also is going to cause issues because I don't unlock the phone for him, so he'll just punch in the wrong screen passcode multiple times and lock me out for like 2 or 3 hours out of my phone, which isn't necessarily a bad thing unless if I need to make a phone call or whatever. But later we realized that it's better to have some restrictions, so now we have like maybe it's fast forwarding a little bit. It's like 30 minutes of like TV watching time and 30 minutes of like video game time if he's earned it for the day. And the gaming can only be done on the Switch on the TV. We don't really give him an iPad for gaming reasons anymore, or at least I try not to. Mainly just kind of stick it for like school use or whatever. Just to give a little bit of a context of how he kind of got started. I don't know if that was going to be your next question, Abdul, of how we start our kids off with gaming, but I didn't want to start him. I wanted to try to delay it as much as possible. And then my wife wanted us to play Wii Sports together, and he was having a lot of fun with that. Noticed him getting addicted with it, so started putting in some restrictions with that. And then my wife, as a teacher, she has access to this thing called Class Dojo, and there's like some sort of a Minecraft-esque game that that works through Class Dojo. And he'd get some time to play it, he'd make some progress, and then when I tell him time's up, he'd have to put his iPad away. But none of his progress saves, and I felt bad about that. He put all this time to like build something or do something in the game, but none of that progress really carries over. So I was like, all right, let me introduce him to his first proper game, and he started out with Mario Odyssey. And that was definitely tough for him. Taught him a lot about how to persevere.
It's a leap.
Yeah, it's definitely a leap. But
how old was he, if you don't mind sharing?
He was 5 at the time. Yeah, and being I do tend to be a backseat gamer, so I had to resist the urge to tell him what to do, what not to do.
It's very,
and
very
sometimes
difficult.
he would just like start throwing the hat and just having fun with it. I'm like, it took me a while to get to the point where I'm like, you know what, just do you, bro. Just have fun with it. Just keep throwing it. That's like him just having fun doing that was, yeah, it was a joy for me to watch. And then slowly he moved over to Super Smash Bros. And Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, which he actually just beat entirely on his own.
Oh, good stuff.
Yeah,
Nice.
I haven't played through it, gone past episode 1, but he went through it too. But like I said, I'm not the example of how to do screen time for your kids. This is just, sorry, I don't know why my Alexa just went off. But yeah, I'm not an example. It's just one of the ways. Well, one example of a parent.
I appreciate it. If anyone has any other questions, I can go down all day. So I don't know. Anybody have anything else that they want to bring in about kids? Because I can keep going.
If something comes to mind, I'll let you know.
You guys all, I think one thing you guys all mentioned was having to kind of guide the kids through the introduction, because managing their behavior as you're watching them kind of get addicted to it. And what were some things you kind of looked out for through that process? What were things that you did to kind of bring them back from that and manage their time and build those habits on their own for them? This is open to anyone, because you guys all kind of mentioned a version of that.
Sure. So I can start here. For one, obviously they don't have their own electronics, so that helps. Just you can't get on. 2, we do have a Steam, and there's a parent's lock on that, so that's another one. And then one thing I also did is if they wanted to play a game but they couldn't play it, as in like it was too hard, I wouldn't help them and facilitate that. Mm-hmm. And what I found is it actually introduced less of a I just want that dopamine fix now, because they started trying to actually figure out how to beat or play the game, which was very helpful. But yeah, so there are definitely some limitations, and if we feel like they've been playing too much, then it's like you got to get off. You can't get on now. And if there's any fighting back or arguing back, which hasn't happened too much, thankfully, at least nowadays, it did happen in the early days. Then there was groundings, or you're not allowed to play now and stuff like that.
Yeah. I want to add something. I forgot to mention this earlier, but prior to me letting my kids start Minecraft, I actually got one of those little handheld emulator games. I'm talking about, like a knockoff Game Boy, and they have all these like, I do not.
Like
I
don't
want y'all to get sued by Nintendo or whatever, but yeah,
Amber something.
Yeah, Anbernick. I got it. I was like, oh, this would be cool to take around with me. So I had one. I played with it. I got the Miu Mini. I got an Anbernick. And what I did is I actually got my kids started with retro games, which are very hard. And they would be playing a few of them, and they'd
The Lion King?
encounter a wall. I didn't go that hard. I'm not trying to abuse my children, But But you know, like for example, I had them. One of them wanted to play Aladdin. She was like, "Oh, this sounds really cool." I was like, "Oh yeah, you're in for a
Oh
journey."
boy.
That's
Oh
just
my
as
god,
hard
I
as
remember
Yeah,
that's
that
just as
game.
hard.
yeah.
My
I
god.
I got one of them started on Pokemon Yellow. You know,
Okay.
so it was fun, and they're having a good time with it. And the nice part about it is you can save the state pretty easily.
Oh
So I
yeah.
taught them how to do
Hmm.
that. Um, and that was a good introduction because those games are really hard. So sometimes they would just hit a wall and they're like, Baba's not going to help me. So then they would just stop playing. They would literally turn it off and go do something else and go play Legos or read a book or something. So I don't know if
I,
that's like a replicable example for everyone, but it is really easy to kind of see the cues of like when a child is jonesing for something when it's like the
Mm.
only thing they think about. But kids do tend to get obsessed about stuff. Like
Hmm.
my friend's son, he was really into Zelda. Like he was playing Breath of the Wild, and his whole world, every game he played on the playground, anything he wanted to read, all had to be about Zelda. Like he would have nightmares about Guardians, but he still wanted to know more about Zelda. Um,
I don't blame him for those nightmares.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. Okay.
one of my friends does something similar to what you do, where he's just like, "Oh, you want to play Breath of the Wild? Well, you got to start with Legend of Zelda 1 and work your way up."
Mm.
Oh, all right.
That's something.
That's a
No, but
ladder right
classic
there.
games is yeah. So that brings up a good transition to my next question: is what it seems like there's a common trend of like what a good starter game was. Most folks said like, hey, like Minecraft or Minecraft-esque seemed like a good starter game, but yeah, like what besides Minecraft, what other like games would you recommend for like a starter game for a child?
I actually
I would.
didn't start them with Minecraft. Sorry, go on, Jublani.
No, no, you first. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I actually didn't start them with Minecraft. I started them with Mine Test, which is a C open source written in C++. It's not really a clone of Minecraft, but they have a cloned game, if you will, because how it works is it's a framework, and then you can have games, and they do have a Minecraft clone game. And the reason I picked that one is because they don't have devices, and this one you can play on your phone and on a computer, and it works, and you can cross play, and that's why we started with that. Also, it's free, so I didn't have to buy 2 more copies of Minecraft.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but generally speaking, why we picked that game first is I wanted a game that was that had a lot of flexibility and freedom. I wanted kids. I didn't want my kids to start playing games where it's like, here's your dopamine fix, here's your dopamine fix, here's your dopamine fix. I wanted them to play something that encouraged a lot of creativity and flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we can get into that a little later when we move on to the rest of the topics. But please go on, Jublani.
Yeah, I think the Nintendo Switch platform is an excellent place to get kids started, specifically games that utilize the motion controls,
Oh yeah.
because it's so much more intuitive than navigating
Mhm.
2 thumbsticks. Like that is
100%.
such a big hurdle for a child, and it's really hard to kind of explain it until you watch a kid go through that. But to do motion controls, like, you know, one of my daughters, like, we were playing bowling on Nintendo Switch Sports, and she got the hang of it like that. And now she's like hitting strikes left and right. The other one really liked the sword fighting game, so that's her game, and she's really good at it. And I had a really hard time beating her. But then when they got to Mario Kart, just that transition to like using the thumbsticks, it was such a steep hill to climb. And then the problem is with some kids, like they hit a wall and then they immediately quit. So you have to find the right level of graduation that kind of goes up. It's not too hard for them to want it, and then they want to continue, right? Mario Kart, by the way, I would not recommend it as a starter game,
Yeah,
just
I
because
put
that,
Mario Odyssey over Kart.
yeah, the level of competitiveness that you have to play Mario
Yeah,
Kart, like that could turn a kid off really quickly.
I experienced that with my nieces and nephew. I brought over Mario Kart. They're all so. This bunch was between ages at the time 6 to 9, and they were having a very hard time. Like, oh, like I keep losing, or
Yeah.
like how come they're getting better than me? Like, you know, all these kinds of emotions. And like I was like, okay, this is the wrong game to play with them. So I really had to like sit them down and like talk them through these emotions, get them to like not quit and like, you know, build some confidence. Then we switched over to Minecraft.
Yeah.
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 when it comes to those competitive games, the rule in my house is you can only trash talk the other person if they agree, and then if they trash talk, that means they agree. So then you can trash talk back.
Oh.
I still dominate Mario Kart and Super Smash, but they almost got me a few times, and yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I have one final question, and then I kind of want to take this conversation forward, fixing, because we're almost out of time. But I wanted to pick your guys' brains on like some pitfalls or some like mistakes that you guys saw on your journey to like, you know, gradual gaming with kids, that you're like, oh, this is getting too bad, let's wind it down, or like let's readjust this way. Any insight that you guys want to share?
I think for me personally, and when I'm handing over the controls to my kids to like continue, or when I'm handing over the controls to my kid to start playing, I make sure there were times when I didn't have the conversation of, okay, you're only playing for an X amount of time, and we set a timer that goes off loudly for him to know that it's time to stop. Whenever I didn't have that conversation with him, was when uh, we started to see issues where he just want to keep playing, and that time is going to be different for everybody. An hour would probably a lot, especially for, you know, the younger the kid is. 30 minutes maybe, I don't know. It's up to everybody to try to figure out, maybe start out at 15, something small enough, you know what I mean. And another thing for me too, this was definitely a mistake that I made. I work from home. My wife works at a school, and you know, when my son comes home from school, I'm still working, and I'm working in a different room than where he's playing. And I he's pretty independent as far as like setting up the timer, because it's on a voice assisted device. I don't want to say its name and activate it accidentally right now. But he would know to use that to set the timer, and you know, I'd hear him setting the timer too. There was one time when it seemed like an hour and a half had passed since he started playing, and he was still playing. And I checked the timer to see how much time is left, and it's like, oh, you have 27 minutes left or something like that. I'm like, were you setting the timer over and over again as it ran out? And then he looked at me and was
Nice.
like, yeah. Okay, at least you're being honest. At least you're being honest. I didn't even try to lie your way out of it.
You figured it
So
out.
yeah, so we're gonna stop the game right now, and yeah, so um, I wouldn't say that's necessarily a mistake, but they'll try to find ways around the system, or try to find loopholes within the system.
Yeah, you could be a little proud of that. That's clever, you know. Like,
Yeah, there you go.
there's something to be said about a kid who understands. It's like Ender's Game, right? He broke the game.
Right.
Yeah. But I want to add a
that's
little to that.
Mhm.
The timer thing really helps a lot, because it's just the right level of impersonal, where it's like, okay, you told the kid, you talked to the kid, it's like, hey, it's the timer. You know, it does absolve you of like personal blame as a parent. You can't over rely on it, like, because you have to set it up, you have to talk to them about the expectations. But like we had a you know, Fire TV, and the kids, we wanted it, like when we were trying to sleep in, we were trying to figure out how my kids wake up at 6:30 no matter what. It doesn't matter when they went to sleep, they're up at 6:30. So what we did is we on the weekends we set it up so that the Fire TV can be started up at 7, and then it has a 45-minute timer, and after that it automatically shuts off. So the kids know they can wake up, they don't have to bother mom and baba, they can just hang out in their room for a little bit, do whatever they need, and they can go down and watch TV, and that just buys us just enough time to sleep. But when it turns off, there's no hard feelings anymore. Now they just know that's what's going to happen. And that's actually pretty great. It really saved it saved us physically. We got to sleep some more. But
Yeah, I'm definitely stealing that from you.
That's a really good one.
That sounds a great idea.
Yeah. There's also the time limitations or time restrictions you can set up for specific game devices and platforms as well. Because I think for the Nintendo Switch, you can set kids accounts with specific time restrictions, but it doesn't know if you pause the game, or if the kids pause the game or something. And sometimes, you know, my kid pauses it to go to the restroom. He'll come back, and if I can just envision, or just I can just imagine that having that such a restriction set up, he's going to complain that, oh, that doesn't count because I was in the restroom or whatever. So the timer itself, he knows to pause it and then resume it when he comes back. I'll catch him not resuming it sometime, but that's like him honestly forgetting to resume the timer. so he says. But yeah, that's definitely another method as well.
For us, one of the mistakes we made was initially not being careful with the timer, which again, we started using timers and stuff when we have time limits. And then one of the things that we also learned through trial and error is to play every game my kids play. First of all, it's nice because you get to play with them. And then when they're talking to you about their game, they're excited because you understand what they're saying. And two, now they can't get away with the "I can't pause here" argument. And like, no, you can get off right now. And now I kind of have a policy of, if you start a game that can't be paused and it's 30 minutes till you're supposed to get off, and it's a 30-minute game, then I'm Alta 4ing you out of the game. It's just happening. So being more strict on that has definitely helped, and now they are very good at self-regulating their time.
That is a great. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just to add to that, there's another element of like providing a good alternative to your children for when they are done with one task that they know to go to another. So what happened is, I made one of the early mistakes that we made was, when screen time was over, they didn't want to read, or they didn't want to do any of these other activities because they had done so many of them. So then I made a rule. I was like, look, if we go to a bookstore or we go to a store and any book you want, I'll buy it. I'm not gonna question it. You can go pick up a book. Of course, if it's age appropriate, go ahead. There's no restrictions on them buying books. I'll buy any book that you want, but like a video game is like a big deal. Like, they had to earn Minecraft, right? That was like a milestone. But giving them that alternative, like my kids now, and I credit my wife with this. She was really big on like making sure the kids read, that she was reading, modeling that behavior, reading. We would read to them a whole lot. But now it's like their default entertainment is reading first, and then when they get access to video games, which is weekends only, for a set period of time, then they'll go do that. But really, like, it's been pretty great. Like, one of my kids will do this. Like, she'll be reading a book and pretend that she can't hear me because she's so into it. And I'm like, part of me is like, okay, it's kind of annoying. Like, hey, you need to come down for dinner. But also part of me is really proud. I'm like, all right, good. Like, you keep doing that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, I was gonna say, that brings up, it's a good transition to like my future state question was dealing with. So not all games are obviously kid friendly, and most of us probably grew up not having these games restricted to us at a level that we will probably want to restrict our kids to. So like I remember playing like GTA like at the age of like 12, which should definitely not have been something I should be playing at the time. So I guess my question is like, how do you guys plan to deal with like these mature-rated games that kids definitely want to play? It's going to get harder as they get into like middle school, high school, and their peers are probably not going to have if they don't have as much restrictions, they're going to be playing, Call of Duty, whatever other game that is. Like, I don't know. How do you foresee tackling that scenario?
That's a really good question.
I'll start with this one just because my wife and I already solved this one, which is before they get into any new genre, it has to be confirmed between us. So, for example, we allowed our kids to play Breath of the Wild because when you killed the enemies, they kind of just disappeared in a puff and there was no blood. So till today, my kids are not allowed to play any games that have overt violence or blood themes. And so that's kind of where we've solved it. It just became a discussion, and each of our kids is different, and so we kind of judge it based on that. Like, is this child ready for X, Y, Z? And that's what we do.
Yeah, I have a similar perspective to that, for now. But I think one of the things that I've been trying to like, I'm really into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. My daughters, they do martial arts as well. So one of the things that we've been, talking about a lot is like, okay, when is violence okay, when it's not? And so I try to fit that into discussions around video games as well. So like, they would watch me play Breath of the Wild. I had no problem with that. But one day I remember one of my kids woke up at night and opened the door stealthily while I was playing Apex Legends. And then she watched me like murk a bunch of dudes, and then I had to explain to her what was going on. So I want to be realistic about it, and that like, they're going to be exposed to other kids playing violent video games. They're going to want to play Fortnite. They're going to want to do this and that. but it's a matter of kind of easing them into it. I'm not going to go straight into like something that there's a lot of blood and gore or a lot of cursing or a lot of sexual themes or anything like that. I think there's enough games where you can kind of gradually step your way up to that. But also, like, I'm not going to force it. I'm not going to push it. If my kids don't want to play those games, I'm not going to, bring it up to them. I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
No, I appreciate it. All right. I mean, I can go all day, but we're kind of limited on time. So I guess we can move to like the next final step here, which is like kind of moving beyond video games. And Sayed, I know you wanted to talk a little bit more on this.
Yeah, so one of the big negatives for video games, and this is something I've come to recognize that's occurred to me, is they do kill creativity a lot. Even the ones that do have creativity in them, they kill creativity because you're constantly in a state of the game caters to you. So even Minecraft, a game like Minecraft, which is very creative, they still give you all the tools, and you're still limited within the framework of the game, if that makes sense. And one of the things I noticed is one of my kids is really into making comic books. And they used to make their own comic books for a while. And then when they started playing more games, they stopped making comic books as much. And one of the things that helped get them back to making comic books is I started moving to games that heavily encouraged making your own world, changing the rules to help your own world. And two games, the games that came to mind were tabletop games, specifically role-playing tabletop games, and tactical map-based tabletop games. And I tried a few different ones. We tried D&D. Stopped playing that one after they tried to torture a goblin. So then instead, I switched to a new system called GURPS, which is Generic Universal Role Playing Game. Great system, by the way. And what I did is I created a campaign where they play as Ottoman soldiers infiltrating Constantinople to see if, like it was basically like Spy on the Wall, basically. And there's no combat in that one after the torturing goblins. If there's a enemy soldier, they roll to see if they can hide or something. And that started opening up the creativity doors. And then I also started introducing other tabletops. So we played Field of Glory, which is and also a one called Starfleet Battles. And then the one that all my kids seem to be enjoying is BattleTech. And they enjoyed that one so much they actually read the rule book on their own. And I was telling them, like, guys, once we figure out the rules, I want you guys to start making campaigns and stories, because they designed for that. You need to make your own things. Like, we're not going to just play it the way they want it played. You need to break off. And that's been what we're working on now, and it's been very successful, alhamdulillah. And I've actually seen the kids start to go back to making comics and doing more creative stuff.
That's awesome.
Like that.
No, that's a great suggestion. Yeah.
That's really good stuff.
So what you're saying is you're gonna give us all the stuff that you've done, so that we don't have to do the legwork, right?
Yeah, I love that Ottoman campaign, man. I'd
it's a very short one shot. It's a very short one shot, and
great introduction, honestly.
Yeah, and I played it with them and one of their cousins, and I recorded it, and you can hear the excitement as they tried to figure out how to break in. And I had planned for 2 routes to get into the city, and they took a completely different route. It was fantastic.
Nice.
I was really happy about that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's really cool.
Do you question? So when you play with them, like, do you have a board, or like, do you play with them on a screen? Like, how are you playing it with them on that?
So for GURPS specifically, I wanted to avoid making it too complicated, so I played it just verbally. I did give them character sheets, but the character sheets were only filled out with what gear they had. So like they had rope, they had this, they had that, and that was just so they would know what they were limited to.
Something to start off with.
Exactly, but that was all verbal. Nothing. No board, no nothing. BattleTech, obviously the way it's played on a hex board. Same with Starfleet Battles, and Field of Glory you play with like figurines on the floor. But even that, like, to show my kids, you didn't need to follow the rules. For Field of Glory, we didn't have all the miniatures for it, so I said, hey, we're going to use cardboard cutouts, and we did. We actually just cut out cardboard in the shape of the bases, and we played it. And
nice.
So and the rule is no screen, so I don't even use my phone to look up rules or plan stuff. It's specifically
all analogs. I like it.
Yep.
Nice.
Nice. I definitely feel like we need to have a part 2.
Oh yeah, 100%. I agree.
So much more to talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But no, super appreciate you guys, bringing the youngest parent a little bit more up to speed on how you guys have been challenging this parental journey of video games. And obviously nobody here is perfect. We're all going into this together, and it's this sort of discussion where we're pulling our ideas together and learning from our mistakes and kind of getting ideas here and there that we can hopefully have a brighter future for our kids. So,
Inshallah. Yeah, that's all what we're trying to do for our kids,
inshallah,
right?
I mean, inshallah.
To give them better futures. With that being said, yeah, definitely thank you guys, SyedQutuz and Jublani, for joining us here. We definitely got to plan out a part 2, and yeah, get that done, inshallah. With that being said, thank you for all our viewers and listeners. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for sticking around. A reminder, if you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and your podcast platform of choice, and leave us a comment. Let us know your feedback, and we'd love to hear from you as well. We're now trying to attempt to record and release new podcast episodes every 2 weeks or twice every month, so definitely be on the lookout for that. With that being said,
we're gonna try something like this kind of format where it'll be
because everybody's talking about the news,
the newsy side, and then maybe a deeper topic. Split them up.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about the news once in a while, but it doesn't have to be every single episode because everybody's talking about the news for those that are really plugged in. But I do really appreciate these types of topics as well. If listeners, if you get other ideas for topics like this that we can discuss, would definitely appreciate that input as well. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Assalamu Alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.